The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of KSMQ Public Service Media Incorporated or its assigns.
Welcome to Garden Connections. I'm your host, Stepanie Passingham. On today's program, we'll meet Paul Trcka, a Master Gardener from Rochester. He'll explain how valuable the Master Gardener program is to our region. Jennifer Oftelie will talk about important garden attire, and Darnell Reindl will show us how to successfully divide perennials. Stay with us for Garden Connections. The University Extension programs in both Minnesota and Iowa offer the Master Gardener program. Paul Trcka is our special guest today, and he is a Master Gardener, and he's going to explain this program to us and tell us why someone might want to be a Master Gardener. Paul, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you very much, Stepanie.
Well, this Master Gardener program, tell us how it got started.
Well, it got started in 1972 at Washington State University in the state of Washington. From there, it took off and went to the University of Minnesota in 1977. So it's not that old of a program.
And these programs are throughout the country.
Yes, in addition to Minnesota and Iowa that you mentioned, Stepanie, they are through all 50 states in the United States. Each state has a Master Gardener program. Okay. They estimate there's roughly about 100,000 volunteers in the United States. And then their contribution to the community, what they give back to each of the communities, they estimate that that is roughly worth about $100 million in service back to the community, serving roughly around 5 million people. So yes, it is very valuable. Very valuable, yes.
So Paul, how do communities benefit from having Master Gardeners in it?
The communities, when you look at, what has happened over the years and how our environment has changed and everything. We've looked at how do the people become more, the community members become more responsible for what's going on in their community. These people, so the Master Gardener program fills that void where some of the state programs can no longer fill that void anymore. So when a homeowner or consumer has a question, they have the Master Gardener program to come back to and ask that question, because they are the people, they're trained by the extension, the university system. They have the interest and they have the desire to be that resource to the community.
And share their knowledge. I found that gardeners are very chatty folks and they love to talk about gardening when they get together.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
So what was your gardening life like before you decided to become a Master Gardener, and kind of what prompted you to want to take that training?
My gardening life was, I grew up on a farm, so I've always had a keen interest dealing with plants. I watched my mother and my uncles and stuff take care of gardens and things, and I never really understood the biology behind it, what was actually going on. And so until I went through college and all those things, I really gained an interest in learning about plant life and what makes plants live, what are the best plants. And one of the things that I've really discovered is there's the right plant for the right environment. Okay. So you can try to take a plant and put it in an area that it's not really suited for, and you can become very frustrated with it. But if you have that knowledge about what are the plant conditions, what does that plant need to live, what's the soil given it, what's the environment given it, you can select the right plant and put it in the right place. You're going to be a lot more successful. That gives me a lot of satisfaction. And also, I enjoy taking this information and sharing it with others through community education, things like that.
You don't actually have a garden now, but your specialty is more in turf and in trees. And it sounds like perhaps the Master Gardener program has a group of folks who do have those specialties that they can turn to answer specific questions.
I myself are more involved in the soils, and I've taught soils classes, whether they're right to our Master Gardeners, because when you take a look at soil here, you know, it's the common element that binds all of us together, that the soil has to be balanced correctly in the right condition. Whether you're growing peas as a vegetable crop, whether you're growing herbs or shrubs or trees, you need the right soil. I've taught soils classes. I've taught classes on invasive species, you know, understanding about the emerald ash borer and what can be done and what needs to be done, or how, as a homeowner, what is your recommendation and your role to protect the environment is.
Your classmates that you had, that you went through, were they people such as yourselves who are really looking for some technical knowledge to back up that understanding, or were folks home gardeners, kind of hobbyists? What was the level of proficiency for folks coming into the program? Because sometimes folks at home think, oh, that's just too much for me. I'm just a home gardener. I love my flower bed. But it sounds like maybe that might be appropriate for them too.
Yes, I mean, for a homeowner, you know, and one of the things you don't want to be afraid of the material, because, you know, because my interest is in soils, and you tend to get into the chemistry side of it. The next person will say, I want to learn how to grow the best peas possible. And you can do that. You don't need to have all this technical, because we're all resources to one another. So if I have a question about something, I know who to go to say, I have a question about this. What do I need to do? And they will fill me in. So we work with each other, and we're a resource to each other, and we know who can answer our questions.
Well, it sounds like there is a huge variety of resources within that Master Gardener pool of folks. There are dozens and dozens of Master Gardeners in our region. If you are interested in becoming a Master Gardener, as Paul said, check with your local county extension office. This may be just right for you. Thanks so much for joining us and explaining the Master Gardener program.
Okay, thank you very much, Stephanie.
All right, stay tuned for more Garden Connections.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Oftelie. Previously, we worked on getting our tools ready for the garden. Today, we're going to talk about ourselves. More specifically, garden attire that can protect us and increase our comfort as we work. Let's start with gloves. There are so many styles and materials to choose from. First, it's helpful to consider your purpose. If you're going to be doing some heavy work, such as running your tiller, driving stakes, or clearing last year's debris, I like to use leather gloves, or leather palmed gloves. They protect my hands from scratches, bumps, and bruises. And spring work is usually when it's a little cooler. Leather can be warm even when it's not insulated. For things like transplanting, I like to use a glove that has a coated palm that's a nice open weave in the back. Your hands are likely to get wet, so I like to use something that will dry quickly, yet still protect my hands. Now, cotton gloves are very, very popular, and they come in a wide variety of colors and patterns. These are really nice for hoeing, weeding in dry soils, potting plants, and harvesting. Now, when it comes to your feet, you once again have many, many options. Other than protecting your toes with boots when doing heavy work, I find that footwear is a really personal choice. Some people garden barefoot, while others prefer garden clogs or wellies. Now, just a word of caution that if you do decide to garden in your bare feet or in flip-flops, make sure you're up to date on your tetanus shot, just in case you swing that hoe a little wide or inadvertently step on a mislaid tool. Now, personally, I use nice, cushy, ventilated clogs. It's really nice, keeps my feet cool. I like to go sockless. Also, it prevents the water from welling up in the toe of my shoe. Keep in mind that your footwear will likely get wet and dirty. Something washable is a plus. I like to throw mine in the dishwasher once or twice a year to make them nice and sparkling clean. Other items, such as aprons, can come in very handy when you have multiple tools to manage, especially during harvest time. Aprons with large pockets are also useful when you run out to the garden to pick a few ingredients for supper, plus they help you stay clean. Overalls will do the same thing and cover you a little more completely. And a final essential that no gardener should ever be without, a hat. You want to choose a hat with a wide brim to ensure protection for your face, your ears, and your neck from the sun. Now, ball caps are nice and quick, but they really only cover your eyes. You need to be a little more conscious of the rest of you. Cotton is a nice washable option, but straw allows a lot of ventilation, and it's nice and cool for hot days. And even though you do wear a hat, be sure to apply sunscreen to all your exposed skin. With some simple pieces of garden attire, you're sure to be more comfortable no matter what your task.
Thanks, Jen. Well, now we're going to learn a little bit about perennials and how to successfully divide them. And our special guest today is Darnell Reindl. Darnell, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
All right. Well, you're with Albertley Seed House now, and you give out great garden advice there, but you've been doing this for a long time. And so we're really looking forward to getting your good advice on how to successfully divide some of these longer term plants. But let's start out by, you've brought several examples of different kinds of roots to help people understand what kind of perennial can be divided.
Timing has a lot to do when you need to do them.
Okay.
There are a few perennials that are better done in the fall. Usually spring flowers, you know, you can do after they bloom. You can do them in the fall. But we'll show some today.
Okay, yeah, let's take a look at what you brought.
This is a dragon blood sedum that I just dug out before I left. And the roots on these are called underground roots, so you can just cut a piece off.
So they look kind of shallow.
Yes, they're very shallow. So what you do is just cut a piece off.
And you're just using a regular garden pruner.
And this is a piece that you could cut off or plant. You just dig your hole, and you want to put nice light,
kind of loose
soil
in there. Okay, so don't just plop it down on flat ground.
Yep. Cover it up a little bit. You could cover some of the stem, and what'll happen, it'll just root in, and you'll have a new plant.
Okay, and water well?
Water well after you're done.
Okay, this is an interesting one. It's so flat. Okay,
Yep.
What else have we got here?
This is what they call above ground roots, and this one, it's wilted, is geraniums. So you'll have a mama plant, and you can just take off the side ones. Just cut the root off, and you can just plant this part.
There doesn't look to be much to that, and that
And
will
it'll grow. And some of these are a little bit more, but it just took them off. Here's another. Just plant that, and that'll grow.
All right, and how deep would you plant something like this?
I would plant it way up here.
So way up
Because
here.
these are little hair roots. The hair roots are what feeds off it. So the more hair roots you have.
Almost up to the green part there. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
That's one kind. The next kind would be like offshoots. Offshoots would be just like daylilies.
Okay. Yep. Very popular.
Very popular. Or hostas. And when you do those, they just kind of break apart. Go like that.
Yeah. Look at that. And you don't have to be especially dainty about it, do you?
No, you got to have a little muscle. The main thing about any of these perennials, you need to dig a pretty good size trench around it so you get all the roots out.
Okay.
Something like this, sometimes that's really hard, and you just got this big clump like this and you can't get it. If you take two garden forks and put them like, split it and push it like this, then you'll get them off.
Okay. All right. And look, and that does really just kind of pull apart once you get
And then they pull apart, and then you have it.
You can see those roots. And again, you're replanting at about the
same level. And you see you have all kinds of these hairy fine roots. Those are what really feeds the tree.
Right.
Now I notice on this there's some flat roots. Anything that's flat is probably rotten or decayed.
Okay.
And you want to get rid of
so
that.
You want to remove that. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And then we have, here's a hosta, and you can do the same thing with the hosta as you do your daylily. And sometimes with hostas, they're such a clump that you can't get into it. So you can take a spade and just cut right
Just
in.
chop right through it. Okay.
Chop right through
And
it.
tell us about this tool that you're using here that you like.
This is a linoleum knife.
Okay. So you pick it up at the hardware store?
Yep. I have small hands, so I need something that is smaller for me to control. And this point helps me control where I'm going.
Okay.
I also have another knife too for prying and stuff like that. Now with hostas, you want to get a clump, get some more of that dirt out of there. That has 3 or 4 pibs at least.
And what's a pib?
A pib is like the bud or the leaf.
Okay.
And you know, you don't have to make them in small ones like this, but if you want a small one, you need to have at least that much.
At least that many. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, so they come apart
Yep.
easily.
And so this would have been
The main,
kind of the main where it was
where
attached to the
attached to.
original. Okay. And so you have just a handful of those. And so this seems so tiny, but how long would it take for this to grow back
that
into
is
a sizable
a particular fast-growing hosta there.
This one is,
and so it wouldn't take much time at all.
plant? Okay. Just a couple years?
Yep. All right. And the fourth kind, and I didn't get all the root of this, but these are taproot perennials. This is a poppy. Now see, the taproot is missing all the way.
Right. Yep. It's
So when you dig this, you have to dig way deep
way deep. Okay.
to get it. And to propagate something like this, poppies, hibiscus, false indigo, they don't really like to be divided.
Okay.
But you can. And you got to make sure that you have this root you can cut downward, the whole thing.
So you split the whole
thing. And you have to have some hair roots.
Okay, and that's these
Really tiny ones.
ones. You want to make sure there's some on each piece that you then replant.
Yep. So if I had the whole root, I would be splitting it downward like this to get it.
That takes a little
Yep.
expertise, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yep,
and
those are a little
a
tougher.
lot of patience. A lot of these, like this particular plant is a poppy, they like to be planted in the fall.
Okay.
They resent you to do it in the spring.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good. And so seasonally, I've always heard kind of spring flowering, divide in the fall, fall flowering, divide in the spring.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part. So I've got an exercise for you that is against that rule.
Okay.
My folks moved in December,
Ah.
but the current residents said, yes, you can come back and get your grandmother's peony. And so peonies are a spring blooming plant, and you wouldn't normally want to divide these in the spring.
Yep.
But in this case, we had to.
Yep.
So this little behemoth probably should have been divided earlier.
Yes, about the end of August is when you want to do peonies.
Okay.
Siberian iris, regular iris, any of those would appreciate being divided at that time.
Okay. And some really are healthier when you divide them on a regular basis. Is a peony one of those?
Yes.
Okay. Because now look at this monster thing. You can see by the picture what it looked like before I dug it up. And here we have it now, and it's a monster, and it was tough to get up on the table today. What do I do with it now? I clearly want to have some to save for our family because it was my grandmother's peony. How do we go about that, about this?
Okay, the first thing is it was cut a little bit too short.
Okay.
You can tell that these have all been cut off.
Yep. Oops.
And
You can see that.
Yep.
Well, now that's
and
even shorter.
Shorter.
But look at how thick that is.
Yeah. And so we need to get as much as we can off.
So
Yeah.
what should I have done differently? If I dug a bigger root ball, I never would have gotten it.
You have to
lifted
do
it
that,
off the
and then
ground.
you're going to have to start taking soil from the bottom, gradually taking more soil away from the plant.
Okay.
And then from the bottom, because you want this exposed.
So it's less harmful to remove the soil than it is to end up with the cut
cut.
root like that. Okay.
And peonies are one of the more expensive perennials there is, and that's because they take a long time to get reestablished.
Okay.
When you buy one in a pot, you buy it by the eyes, and there's what the eye is what these sprouts are, and then you want at least 3 to 5 eyes.
Okay.
And a lot of times you can tell the color of a peony by the color of the eye, about 90% of the time.
Okay.
This peony probably had pink eyes.
Yep, this is a pink.
A
Yep.
white one would have white.
Oh,
A
okay.
red one would be.
And that's what would show down here
Right.
around the base.
When you do it naturally.
Okay.
Like in August, you would be cutting this off, so you don't have all this top here with
Right.
it, and so you have something to work with.
To work with. Okay. Well, do your very best, and let's maybe try to peel one out of there, because it looks like the size of this, if all we need is this much, I'm going to get several
You're going to get a lot,
several plants from this one.
but it's going to take some time. Try to get some of this dirt off. A lot of times you'd use on a plant like this, you'd get a hatchet maybe or something that you can cut into some of these really big roots like this, because something like this or a pruner not going to do it.
Right.
So.
And so you do have to go into the plant a little ways. You can't just snip this little piece off.
No, you need some of these roots to go with it.
Sometimes you just have to go with
Okay,
what you
it
have.
broke off.
Okay.
I would love to have more roots to this. So if you're going to replant it, get the pruner the right way.
So you snip
It's
off
about
the
this.
tops.
I'd like to have more roots this going this way, but it broke off. So the next one probably will be easier to do,
Okay.
because you got to start now. Now when you plant them, peonies are very particular about how deep they want to be planted.
Okay.
These little sprouts don't want to be any deeper than 2 inches underground.
Okay.
If they don't, that'd be like right here, so about cover it up. That's about it.
So this one, when I put it in,
It'll be like about right here.
okay, right at this
Yeah.
level. Okay.
You see there's more eyes coming right here.
Oh, sure. So maybe all is not lost on this particular piece.
No, I'd plant that.
Okay. All
I'd
right.
plant that, and it does have a lot of hairy roots coming out, so
coming
you'll
out.
be all right.
Okay. So I've got quite a job in front of me on this one.
Yeah, I'd get a hatchet
Okay.
to get it to a smaller part down there, because, yeah, you need a hatchet.
And maybe split it and then
Right, and then work
kind of work at it at the pieces.
Make sure that you put some nice loose soil in, and water it in well.
and water it well. Okay. All right. Well, let's move over to something that is perhaps a little bit easier. Rhubarb is a popular plant just because it seems like everybody has one. And if you don't have one, you don't go out and buy it. You just run to your neighbors and chop off a piece of theirs.
There.
So this is another one that I dug just on Saturday, and I found it interesting as I was digging. Some of these pieces were just kind of falling off, and these are kind of little guys. So,
This would take a little bit of time for it to grow, but it would grow.
so you could still plant that.
You could still plant that. It has very nice, fine roots or feeder roots on it.
Okay.
I would prefer to have rhubarb a little bit faster, so I'd make a little bit bigger.
You'd make a bigger
Big
slice. All right,
digit.
so let's tackle this guy and tell me where you would cut him.
Okay. Sometimes rhubarb has like centers that are kind of rotten. Don't get too scared about that.
Okay, and just cut it away.
Cut it away.
Okay. Let's just get that guy out of the way. Oh, look at that. Okay. Yep, let's turn that.
Then you can
Folks
see that's a nice division. You could just plant that whole thing.
It's got good roots. It's got the little roots growing
Yep,
here.
got nice feeder roots and some anchor roots in there.
Well, that looks good.
Yep.
And again,
also
depth.
the same level as it is. You
As
could
it is.
probably do 2 if you wanted to. Let's cut that big root right here. But I think I'd plant the whole thing.
Plant the whole thing.
You can plant rhubarb in early spring.
Oh, you can. Okay.
They do divide them and have them bear root in the spring. They do the dividing, in the fall.
Okay.
like in August.
Okay.
Like
So
you
you
do
dig
your
them up, you divide them, leave them bare root in a cool.
That's how
Moist place.
nurseries do it.
Okay.
So when you buy it in the spring, you're buying something that looks like this, but
Okay.
it has no leaves on it.
Has no leaves. Okay.
Okay,
Sure.
in the spring. But you can plant it in the fall, and do find a little, it has leaves in the spring for you.
Right.
If you're going to go to your neighbors and take a little piece.
All right, sounds good. Typically, so we've talked about having loose soil to give the plant some room to maneuver and get itself settled. We've talked about watering well. I'm assuming that means more than once. How often should we keep these moist?
Most of these are fleshy roots, so you don't want to water too much. You can overwater them and the roots will rot.
And they'll rot, okay.
You want to do any of this stuff in the cool part of the day, like in the morning or in the evening.
Okay.
And if it is hot, make sure that you're laying something over it that's damp so it doesn't dry out before you get it back into the ground.
Okay, and ideally you'd want to dig, divide, and replant
Plant
all
at
in
one day.
in one day. Okay, so hopefully these will hang in there.
Yep, and
Holding for
they'll
us.
be fine. If this was mine, I'd probably cut off the leaves
You would, okay.
and plant it.
Okay,
It's-
just because is it hard on the plant to
It
kind of
is.
maintain those things?
Yep, it's hard. It's trying to feed these leaves, and if you don't have those leaves, it's going to go to the root.
Okay,
That's
good
with any of it.
advice. All right, well you've brought us wonderful examples and helped us tackle a few problems of our own. Darnell, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, I hope you learned something today. I certainly did, and I've got a bit of work ahead of me. I hope you'll join us next week on Garden Connections as we learn something else about how to make our garden grow. I'm your host, Stepanie Passingham.
On Garden Connections, we'd love to see photos of your garden. Or if you have questions for our garden experts, contact us by emailing garden@ksmq.org or like us on Facebook.